I'm not being paid well and I'm working really hard and I'm tired. There's a rack full of people who don't know how to articulate their value. What I learned was most of the people who would negotiate were negotiating because they had mentors, family, and advisors that taught them how to. But I want us to reframe how we look at the breaking point, and this is the way that I talk about burnout. So burnout is when your body comes to a complete halt. Your body, your mind, spirit, will, and emotions, it stops you, brakes, pump the brakes, not to kill you, but to sustain life. Pull the pay rates and look at what everybody's making. You have to literally wipe out what culture, society, workplaces told you should be paid.
The way you help people goes beyond creating a high pricing offer. You help them uncover the patterns that kept them stuck.
And that is where we really spend time in a group coaching setting, talking about how do you discover your purpose, and then what does positioning look like. So that's all the nuts and bolts of business plan, resume, LinkedIn, offers, setting all those market rates and things like that. And then we go through it, personal brand, like what do you want your story to be? What is your unique value proposition? We go through all that in Career Transformation Lab.
Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman. Today we are going to speak about how to shift from burnout to creating high value opportunities. And our special guest is Candyce. Welcome, Candyce.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm going to share a little more about your background, Candyce. You are a career strategist, speaker, and the creator of the Get Off the Clearance Rack movement, helping people stop underpricing themselves, increase their income, and make better career and business decisions. You started helping people when you personally hit a crossroad. After more than 20 years in retail, you reached a breaking point of burnout that forced you to question everything and how you are showing up in life. But instead of staying stuck, you did the hard work, facing fear, healing past patterns, and rebuilding from a place of integrity and real expertise. Today, we are going to dive into your creation, the Dominion Code framework, and how you use it to help people move from burnout to stronger positioning. Through your coaching, people are not just manifesting anymore. They are addressing the real issues that keeps them stuck. We're also going to explore your podcast, your program, and how you equip people with real tools. In this episode, we're going to discover how to remove stuck, underpaid, and exhausted from our vocabulary. And I want to welcome you warmly.
Thank you so much. It's always like hearing somebody else talk about your work. Like, who, me? Is that me she's talking about? Thank you so much. You articulated it so well, and I'm excited for today.
Well, now we want to pick your brain. Let's get to know you first, though. Let's get to know who you are, where you come from, and what got you started to this amazing journey.
Yeah, such a good question. And I could probably spend a whole day talking about the journey that is my life. But I'll just say this. I'm from Chicago. So I'm a Chicago girl at heart. I've lived in the South longer than I lived in Chicago, but I still claim Chicago like I lived there yesterday. Spent 20 years in retail operations, 20 plus years actually, and I'm still in retail operations because my daughter and I actually, after my burnout, we started a retail company where we make and sell t-shirts. I was in my career, and Sarah, I was always on a promotion track. However, what was happening with me that sometimes people don't admit is that something just kind of always fell off. And I would find myself going, I wonder how this is going to end. Like, it didn't seem real. And I'm talking, I was excelling all the time, lived in 7 different cities over 13 years, getting new roles, promoting myself to new companies and higher roles. Success looked good externally and on paper. However, I still had this feeling of this is going to end one day and it's going to end bad. And I just didn't know what it was. And that was a signal that was starting to happen in my body that I didn't know how to name. And it was burnout. There were a couple of things that happened. And I want to use this to kind of tell you who I am. One, I had accepted a role for $85,000 in my career. And I later found out 2 things. One, my business partner at 5 Minute Career Hack, her and I were having a conversation one day, and she said, I was telling her I'm a little displeased with my salary. That was the something that felt off. I'm not being paid well, and I'm working really hard, and I'm tired. And I said, I make 100,000 because I was 100,000 at the time. And she says, whoa, that is egregious because I started off, we were in the same role. I started
Yeah.
off at 165. You make too little. So that was
Mm.
the first point. Second point was me later finding out that the person who I replaced when I was offered 85,000 made $175,000. And so I didn't have the tools to do something with that at the time, but I always knew something is gonna, like, I'm gonna have to do something different. I don't know what that's gonna look like. But hearing those disparities in salary and seeing how it was coming up in my personal and professional life, even though it seemed like I was doing well, I couldn't unhear what I had heard. Seven,
Absolutely.
right? I couldn't unhear it. And so over time, I discovered, which is how I am doing what I'm doing now, talking about burnout as well as undervaluation in this way, is I realized that I wasn't really just underpaid. I was just historically not paid what the market offered. And so I was underplaced. And I spent majority of my career being underplaced. It didn't just start in my career. We'll talk about how it started in my life, but that's the journey that I've been on and that I help others with, is understanding what their placement is and help them get to rightful place through some of my framework. So that's a little bit about me and my story.
That's very intense. I was going to ask you, is there any reason for people to shy away from asking, about salaries and money?
Yeah, several reasons. I think it's we do what we are taught to do. I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, which we talked about in our pre-show. And the shifting point in my career, and one of the main reasons that I do what I do, is when I started to realize that everything I was doing, they were doing even more so than what I said to do. So the reason why it's tough for us to advocate for more for those that advocate for more is because we just didn't learn it. We didn't learn it from inception of early career. My mom did not teach me how to negotiate, not because she was a bad person, but because she did not know that she could negotiate. Because especially women, and especially
Interesting.
minority women, we were taught, just if you can get in the room, you've done well. And that's what we go into
That
the
is so
workplace
true.
kind of carrying with us. And so as throughout my career, I'm now onboarding and I'm responsible, and I have 6-figure earners reporting to me. And I had the great opportunity to take over upwards of 6 new teams over my career, where I'm starting from scratch, broken process, broken team, and I got to look and fix everything. And one of the first things that my mentor taught me to do was pull the pay rates and look at what everybody's making. And I
Yeah.
would, and it was the same story every time, where the minority woman was at the bottom and the Caucasian male was at the top. And when you look at
Wow.
compare the experiences across the list, the experiences did not match up. And most times the woman had more experience and more education than the man did. However, there was a disparity in their pay. And so what I learned with seeing who negotiated, what the pay rates look like, all of that, what I learned was most of the people who would negotiate were negotiating because they had mentors, family, and advisors that taught them how to. They were in community with people who spoke this language, and they went and did that thing.
Yeah.
And it's not until we, who may not be as comfortable with it, we have to get comfortable quickly articulating to people what we're making. Like, I should be able to tell you that I make this amount of money, like I did
Yeah.
with Jamila, and for Jamila to say back to me, not good. You don't make enough. But if I stay afraid of telling somebody what I make, then I'm probably going to stay underplaced and underpaid because I don't trust the community around me to share it.
Oh, that's so true. And I think it's really it's in us to not trust the community around us, right? Because we want to succeed, and we have never really worked for the success of each other. I
Right.
feel that we have a lot to learn when it comes to that topic. I want
Yeah.
to ask you also, why do you think that people wait for the breaking point of burnout before to actually make the decision of changing their lives?
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons why. If I had to pinpoint again, and I think it's all the same theme, it's conditioning. I will be willing to bet that, especially if a woman is listening to this podcast, at some point in her career in life, she was taught that you got to outwork the next person. You got to work a little bit harder to get to this place where everybody else is, right? So this is the story that the limiting deposits that we got throughout our careers. And so what I believe happens is that hard work becomes the strategy. And so we focus so much on hard work that we're not focused on the strategy of actually unlearning some of that stuff and actually elevating sustainable careers. And so then we become overfunctioners. And so then all of a sudden we hit this point where, even though the signs have been there, we've had the panic attacks, we've had the I'm so tired, I don't even know if I can make it through another day. You have me who's saying, I know this is not going to end well, something's off, and we ignore it. We ignore it because we were taught to work hard, because hard work is the strategy and the key to getting where historically women could not get to. And so that's why I think it ends up being a breaking point. But I do want to kind of shift the mindset around what that breaking point is, because I don't think that the breaking point is bad. I do want us to notice it earlier, but I want us to reframe how we look at the breaking point. And this is the way that I talk about burnout. So burnout is when your body comes to a complete halt. Your body, your mind, spirit, will, and emotions, it stops you, pump the brakes, not to kill you, but to sustain life. So when I hit my breakthrough point in 2020, if I had kept going at that rate because I was conditioned to, I probably would have perish faster. Right. So now I look at, okay, you know what? I'm glad that happened. So now I can help other women with it, but now I can kind of reframe that if it didn't happen, it actually saved my life and it preserved me. So I think burnout is inevitable. A breaking point is going to happen. It's just about you having, not ignoring the signs and using that as information to inform what you do next. Right. Because I think sometimes we get stuck in, oh my God, I broke. I'm embarrassed. I burned out. I'm not working hard enough. What are people going to think about me? And then that becomes a career and a business derailleur versus I burned out and I hit a breaking point. And actually that's the best thing that ever happened to me, because I could not keep going at the pace that I was going. Right. And whoever taught me that, they were wrong anyway. I loved them, but they were wrong. So it's very common. So I think it's glad you asked that question.
You remind me of a podcast that I was listening to with Cody Sanchez, right? And she was saying, and her guest was saying that we are not, we think we are rational beings who with emotions, but we are actually emotional beings who rationalize. Mm-hmm. So when you understand that breaking point is not a failure, is once again your emotion reminding you that you cannot keep up with that pace, you cannot feel shame about it, like you just mentioned. Absolutely. And I love the fact that you're reminding that, especially to women, you're really reminding it to everybody, because under this patriarchal society, men and women struggle equally, right, to reach the top. There is always this performance that's needed. But at the end of the day, when you understand that your body is there to remind you that something is wrong, you can finally adjust to that feeling rather than feeling like you simply failed. Because what's going to happen is there is nothing next to that after. There is nothing after that for you. So career-wise, I love the fact that you're embracing, once again, these emotional triggers that remind people you're worth more, not less.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're so right about the emotional piece. Again, it's another part of cultural conditioning that we don't have time for emotions. We don't have time to feel. And leave your feelings at the door. Separate business and personal. Like, we're at the end of the day, all of us in this journey, we're humans. And so we can't afford to not feel. Yeah. It's, in fact, it's like sweeping the feelings under the rug. Eventually the rug comes up And that was the feelings that were under that rug, that was the my body signaling of this is going to end bad one day. And it was in my personal life and it was in my work, right? It was my
Yes.
marriage at the time. I was like, this is all going to end bad one day. I don't know what's going to happen, but it was
Mm.
simply because I was escaping emotions. I was denying my humanity and thinking that I was some machine in life and in the workplace. And it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that with us. There is another important topic that I wanted to cover also, because I was listening to your podcast, and we are going to speak more about your podcast later in the episode. But there is this concept of being rounded, and thinking this is actually necessary at work, but it's detrimental and it makes you replaceable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell
Yes.
us more about that?
Yes, that's a good topic. One
Because
of my
that hit me
co-founders.
hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
One of my co-founders, Jamila Brown, she's a mentor of mine. So if you ever hear me talking about my mentor, I'm typically talking about Jamila Brown. So
Okay.
she recorded that episode about how being well-rounded hurts us and why being good at everything actually makes us replaceable. And so I think it's absolutely true. Yes, being a generalist is good, and people are going to pay for generalists, but people are going to invest in specialists. That becomes, in my opinion, particularly hard when you are like myself, I'm in yourself, and probably lots of the women who are here. We can't deny that we've walked through. I'm 39 years old. I have done a lot. I can do resumes. I can do LinkedIn. I do career coaching. I can do interview coaching. I make t-shirts. I can help you start a business. I'm a speaker. I do workshops. I do I mean, like the list, I'm overwhelmed just telling you that, right? And so I'm overwhelming myself, and that can keep us in a stuck place because I'm so well-rounded. I've got to pick a lane and be able to articulate that value to the person who needs me to solve a problem, right? So if I'm a generalist and I can do everything, when you get to close the deal or pitch the business, or you get to the interview, which when we help in career coaching, then you've confused your audience. They're going to think that you're remarkable, and then they're going to say, thank you, it was nice to meet you. Versus
Oh, yeah.
positioning yourself as a specialist of, my name is Candyce, and I tell the joke all the time because I think that's important to have charisma as well, but I'm an athlete. I get paid to run my mouth. I use my voice to help others figure out how to govern their own voice, their value, and their vision. And I do so with my 5-Minute Career Hack podcast and my Get Off the Clearance Rack framework. So now I want you to know that, how do you leverage me after even you hear this conversation? You want to hire me to bring this conversation to your conference, to your event, to your summit, to your podcast, and then that can expand, and you can discover more value that I can offer from a consulting standpoint from there. But what you need is my voice. But if I spent time focusing on, I'm a generalist and I can do everything, and I'm so well-rounded, there's no problem that you have that I can't solve, it doesn't tell you what you need me for now. And most people who encounter us, they have an immediate problem.
Right.
So it's a part of being able to articulate your brand. And that's why the clearance rack exists. There's a room full of people who don't know how to articulate, or a rack full of people who don't know how to articulate their value. And my job becomes, in my speaking, to help you get to the mannequin behind the glass. So when folks are walking by, they go, Candyce, I need to get her on my stage. I need to get her on my panel, my podcast, etc.
How did you come up with the name Get Off the Clearance Rack? It's straight to the point. You told me that you were somebody who was going to help people wake up. You're not going to sugarcoat things. And I feel that this name, the name of this program of yours, is straight to the point.
Yes. So, I'd say a couple of things that got me to this name. So I've been a mentor, a coach my entire career. And so I've always been the person who was going to, with love, get to the point of what you needed to know. However, I did also spend my entire career in retail. So I got to learn in my career a lot of the psychology around clearance and inventory pressure and pricing and merchandising strategies. And so I spent the last 5 years in 5 Minute Career Hack developing myself in storytelling and really honestly, Sarah, finding my voice. Like, I have all this experience, but I was in a new lane and I wasn't sure, like, am I boring? Am I fun? So for a while, you'll find some podcast episodes of me singing because I was like, well, this is me. I sing. So I'm going to sing in my podcast episodes. And I was trying to find my voice. And then one day I was actually writing a book and for biz, because I was a new entrepreneur and I was just noticing so much undervaluation. And I was like, man, I have so many stories in just a short period of time. Let me get to writing. And so somehow as I was writing, clearance started to come to my mind. And the story that I was writing was about the 85K story because I was calling that my anchor story. And I realized in my writing that it didn't start with 85K. It actually started with the offer before that, which is my 65K story. And so naturally in clearance, you start at 60% off and then you go to 80. So it clicked in my brain and I was like, you know what? Everybody shops. I've already discovered this art of being relatable in digestible chunks on the 5 Minute Career Hack podcast. I'm going to use this to tell my story. And I thought I was just doing something that would last as a moment in time. But I was telling my business partner the other day, I was at a track meet for a friend of mine. Her kids play track. And this parent sees me and she goes, you're the get off the clearance rack girl. And I was like, all right, we got it. I'm going to just talk about it that way and use my experience, my knowledge of clearance as a shopper to relate to what over 70% of women are experiencing, and that's undervaluation and underplacement. So we're going to be doing this for the next at least 3 to 5 years. We're going to be talking about it just like this.
We understand it better that way because I think we know shopping math. We understand that. And we understand also what discounting ourselves means when we're not, when we are worth actually more than the price that we are actually offering. I want to ask you, for a woman who feels undervalued, that has a low ticket offer for independent woman, has a business, could be on Shopify, could be on anywhere really, that she's trying to understand how can she price things for the quality it deserves or for the quality of her performance. What can she expect from your program?
Yeah, so let's go Dominion Code, and we're gonna Dominion Code, which is my response to get off the clearance rack. So get off the clearance rack is the diagnosis, it's the symptoms, it's the signal, and then the Dominion Code is the hey, here's the cure kind of for it. Which the cure doesn't happen overnight. The cure is a lifelong journey, and so it's true. TRUE. T is for truth, R is for resolve, U is for unleash, E is for elevate. So let's just start with the truth. T for truth. If a woman is undervalued and not sure how to price her stuff, price her services, price her products, let's just go grab some facts. We're going to find out how much the market pays for what you're doing.
Okay.
And so that can be as simple as, if I'm talking to a woman that's in the career space, it's what does platforms like Career Builder, Glassdoor, PayScale, what are they saying the market average is for what you do with the person with your experience, your education, your exposure? And let's go grab the data to find out what that is. Not like you have to literally wipe out what culture, society, workplaces told you should be paid and just strip it all the way down to the facts of what you should be paid. For entrepreneurs, that can look like, going and doing some market research. I think the other piece that we miss in terms of gathering facts and seeing what's possible is in our conversations. It is social as well. And that's why I always start off telling people the story of my conversation with Jamila when she told me, We $65,000 apart 5 years ago, right? Like, so now we're further apart. If I don't have those conversations, I don't gather additional data about what's possible so I can start to raise my salary. So my response is, one, go do the research, gather the data in truth. Two, go have conversations with people who are where you're going or who were there at one point, so you can start to get to the truth about what the market says versus internalizing what somebody else told you should be offering or be paid.
So you're basically helping people, equipping people with the tools so they can analyze exactly where they should position themselves according to their knowledge or what they're selling or offering. That's amazing coaching.
Yes, absolutely.
We should be learning that at school, actually. We should, like you mentioned, negotiation at home, and then, some very necessary soft skills to negotiate salaries at school. We don't do it, but then we never seek a coach to adjust. We just go roll with the flow, and we're 100% victim of, whatever our employer decided to offer us.
Yes, that is such an amazing point. And if I can just quickly, that's where the R comes in with resolve. Okay. Because, and you are spot on. So what happens a lot of times is we know the truth, but because we believe the emotional piece and we believe the lie and the limiting deposits, we do nothing with the truth. So I'm going to use myself as an example. When Jamila told me that I was $65,000 apart from her, I still went an additional 5 years being underpaid because I just didn't believe that I should be paid that much, even though I had evidence. I had not done the internal work. And so the resolve is about taking the truth and then challenging it up against your belief systems. And so I wasn't able to get unstuck until I started challenging everything that I had been taught as it pertained to my career and my life. And so I went, again, I challenged everything that I was taught because Jamila told me that, but I went back and I explored, where did this start? And that's how I got to, you know what? The first time in my life where I thought I was the stuff and I was being praised a lot, and then I got a little confidence and outward with it, then I had somebody crush me down and say, you think you're all that. You think you're better than everybody. You think you know more than us. I was valedictorian one time, and I remember just being overly praised, and then I got a little confident and somebody shut it down. And that was the first time that I learned that even though you know the truth, like the grades were there. I was valedictorian. That's what this over here, I got a little certificate, is my valedictorian certificate. But when somebody told me that I thought I was better and they crushed my confidence, that thought process, that belief followed me for 20 plus years. And so even though I know 185 versus 175 versus 85, 165 versus, 85, $100,000, I know that I still believe that I shouldn't be paid this much because I don't want to be too much. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to do the wrong thing. And so it's you got to do the inside work, or you can have all this great information and you can still end up undercharging, not negotiating in your life, in your career, your profession, your business, all those things.
Oof, that was a powerful story. And I know a lot of women out there and men who are also listening to us are going to be able to relate. It also helps us understand the way you help people, because it goes beyond also creating a high pricing offer. You help them uncover the patterns that kept them stuck. You shared your story right now. Can you tell us how you help people uncover this reality?
Yeah, we do so in a variety of different ways. So one, I always try to point people towards where I have so many resources, the 5 Minute Career Hack podcast. If you can go, I always try to start people at the wellness playlist that we have at 5 Minute Career Hack. So go there, listen, you're going to find yourself there. The second way is we have a Career Hacks Masters course, and this is before you even talk to me. You can go and get that course on our website, and it's the first course in the whole set of modules is emotional intelligence. So now we've got tools, resources. That's before you get to me, come and be with us. We have a couple tools that we offer. One is we have a career community. So you basically have access to myself and my two business partners, where right now I'm in the middle, and I do this once a quarter, of a 21-day challenge where we're walking through each element of true, and I'm having you do the micro actions every single day. So like, for instance, the other day was value gap, what I just talked about. And I challenged everybody in the community, go find your market rate, go look at what you're paid. And now let's calculate the conservative 5-year gap. If you stay there for the next 5 years, how much money are you going to be losing? Because I want you to see a number you can't unsee, so we can actually get to, all right, now let's start looking at what the next step in your career is. So we go through 21 days of that. It's a free challenge that I offer. And then the second step after that is the Career Transformation Lab. And that is where we really spend time in a group coaching setting, talking about preparation. What does actual preparation look like beyond the challenge? How do you discover your purpose? And then what does positioning look like? So that's all the nuts and bolts of business plan, resume, LinkedIn, offers, setting all those market rates and things like that. And then we go through it, personal brand, like what do you want your story to be? What is your unique value proposition? We go through all that in Career Transformation Lab. And then next, if you want to go deeper, then we're gonna, all right, well, let's stay together. And then we do a group coaching cohort where we go deeper. We bring in even more speakers. We have more deeper frameworks to help you just continue to refine and grow your work. So lots of different ways you can work with us, but we like to start from the root. We like to make sure we point you towards the resources that are available while you're driving in your car, picking up your kids, headed from destination to destination, and then come do the deeper work with us inside the community and our transformation labs.
I was going to say community. So what you're offering is not only coaching, it's also community.
Oh, absolutely.
So you can be held accountable, and you can hold yourself accountable. And whenever you have a question, you can reach out, because it's a real complete package that you're offering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I hit my burnout, every pivot that I've made, I only went as fast as I went because of who I had around me. When I decided to stop.
That's a strong reality check.
It is. I was on a podcast recently, and I was sharing with the podcast host, who asked me, like, how did I get here? Like, what gave me the courage to do things the way that I do things? Because I'm pretty bold and pretty loud, even though I'm soft, right? And I told him, I said, there was a point in my life where I didn't even know what I was going to do next, and I couldn't make a decision without consulting with someone when I was burned out real bad. I had my therapist and my coach that I was consulting with daily and weekly. And if I didn't have them, I would not be able to talk about this the way that I was. So we were put on this earth to be in community. Nobody was put here to be alone.
So true.
I do think it's important to oscillate from being alone to being in community, to go practice what you learned while you were alone, rinse and repeat. But without community, without having trusted people around you that you can give space to, and they hold space for you, and you can be completely honest about what's going on in your life and your career, you don't win. So my community is it's why I get up and get in the community in the mornings, because I want people to know I'm here. I'm telling all my business too. Like, I want you to feel so safe. I'm telling you all the stuff. Right? And so I want you to feel safe, to be transparent as well, and to share what you actually have going on, because somebody is going to hold you accountable, but then somebody in the community might even be your solution, which is how most opportunities come. I've gotten most of my opportunities because somebody heard me talking and they referred me to the next person, and so on and so on. So absolutely, community is one of the number one. It's one of the top ways. I wouldn't say number one. It's one of the top ways to make movement in your business and your career.
The way I introduced you at the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned the fact that we were stepping away from manifesting and actually making it happen, having the tools to make things happen. And the reason why, when I created this episode, I realized that this is what you're offering, is that a lot of people understand that you have to see yourself there if you want to go there. But the lies that are being spread online with the law of manifestation made them believe, and this is actually a study that's online, it made them believe that if they could say 30 times a day, I'm going to become a millionaire, I'm going to become a millionaire, I'm going to become a millionaire, you're going to become a millionaire. And what happened is that it has created a symptom, and that led to depression, because the reason being is when you see yourself there and your reality is here, all you see in between is in the middle is a gap. And you never understand that you haven't put yourself in the right rooms. You haven't surrounded yourself with the right people. You haven't actually collaborated enough with people. You haven't even cross-compared your own growth with other people's growth to see how you could grow better and how you could help someone else grow better. You know, there is so much in the middle that has been forgotten because of this law, but people want a quick fix. So when they heard, I'm going to manifest that in my life, they keep on repeating that every day. They forget that there is a reality that they need to create for themselves. And this is what I felt with your program, is that this is what you're offering for people, is we are going to pinpoint via like understanding your past traumas, the patterns that keep you stuck. Understand, you know, where exactly you haven't priced yourself properly for what happened to you in the past, but also have you ever even considered being in the right rooms with the right people so you can progress faster? And it's something that for me, the package that you're offering is very special for that very reason.
Yeah. I don't know that I even ever used the word manifest. And I think I'm glad that you said that, because I don't even think I've had this conversation, but it hit me while you were talking. That's exactly why True exists, because I would rather than tell you to say or do something that you don't believe, I'd rather you just get grounded in what's factual and what's true. And so Dominion Code, if I'm, and I don't ever mind sharing kind of where it originated, but I believe, based on my belief system, that when we were created, we were given dominion. All the other things were created before humans, and then when humans were created, we were created to have dominion over everything. So that's why we take care of animals. That is why we take care of plants. That's why we take care of the land. And so the truth is, this governance that we are seeking after in our careers, trying to gather control, trying to prove ourselves, trying to show people we're worthy, the fact of the matter is we were worthy before we were even born. And the way that I like to help people understand it is, now I just need you to reclaim and embrace what's already yours. And so there is a process of, again, the true formula, like you got to take the steps and you've got to do the work, because we weren't just handed this stuff. Like I wasn't handed this house and now I don't have to work to pay for it. I was handed these gifts, these skills, and these talents, and now I got to do the work, which is beyond manifestation. It's actually it's just knowing what's true, believing it, and then doing the work to make sure that I'm walking in my truth daily.
Now that you have explained to us more deeply about your program, I want to ask you, what exact mindset shift happens when people start working with you, and what actually changes in their life?
Yeah, it's and I think it's, if I sum it up to kind of some of the stuff that we've talked about, the mindset shift is challenging your belief system, and more importantly, what you believe about yourself. And so, yes, it's compensation strategies, it's business strategies, but the first strategy is a self-love strategy. What do you believe about yourself? What is your self-talk? What's the language? What are your standards? Like understanding all of those things so that we can remove and, or at least acknowledge and start to do the work on the internal barriers that get us to, now I can confidently start practicing compensation strategies. I could start
Yeah.
practicing getting ready for an interview. I could start practicing for pitch competitions. Yeah, so the mindset shift is getting to the truth about what you believe about yourself and what you're capable of, and then practicing that with yourself so you can go and practice it with more confidence in the community to get to your results faster.
Amazing. You also spoke about courage, right? And I want to ask you, what does courage look like when someone feels completely unready or afraid to fail?
Yeah. I mean, such a great question, and a part of the Dominion Code framework. It's true, but it's to the power of C, which is courage. And I like to help people understand what I've discovered that courage is not. So courage is not the absence of fear. For me, courage is about, yeah, I'm scared. I've never asked somebody to pay me $10,000 to come and speak my first time, right? Asking that. But I'm going to do it anyway. My voice is going to be shaky. My legs might be shaking. I'm not sure. I do fear that I'll be rejected, but I'm still going to have the courage to ask for it anyway. So courage is not the absence of fear. It's a conscious choice and a decision to just do it anyway, right? So this comes up in just about every aspect of our lives, where even when we feel like we're unready, I want us to reframe what we even see unready as, because I don't know that unready is a real thing. I think we're unpracticed, right? So if you want to have
Yeah.
confidence
Yes.
and activate your courage with confidence, practice. So
Yeah.
when I first negotiated my first $185,000 salaries, that was like a couple salaries before I left corporate America. I practiced by myself in the car. So you got to be able to practice with yourself. I practiced, and then I practiced with my ex-husband. I practiced with my business partner. I practiced with a mentor. So when I got to the conversation, I was ready to ask, even though I was still a little afraid, because rejection is a thing in my life where I'm always going to be overcoming the fear of rejection. But I had practiced so much that I was more comfortable making the ask. So courage is not about readiness. It's not about canceling fear. It's about doing it anyway.
That's really beautiful. It's so true. I know a lot of people
Thank
again
you.
will be able to recognize themselves in the words you've just spoken. It's a lack of practice sometimes, and confidence comes after practice. I think people wait to be ready, but you will never be ready. People are not ready to. You were not ready even when you were born. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd have been walking out the womb. You
Yeah, absolutely.
had to learn to walk. You had to fall and bump your head. Somebody had to tell you
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
Like we
yeah.
built confidence in our ability to
We
walk
did.
because we practiced walking. We practiced learning. We
Yes.
failed. We got back up, and we had support systems that helped us up when we fail. And that's what life is about. This is career and business principles, but
Yeah.
this is very much life strategies.
And that, back to the support system you just mentioned. See, when we were children, we had that support system, and I think that we found ourselves a little dumb when we realized that as adults we had all this independence and no community. Back to that again, to support our growth, and now failing has become something that is attached 100% to our agency rather than apprenticeship. You've said also that emotional work come before strategy. Why can't we skip that part?
Why you can't skip the emotional work? Ugh.
Yes.
Several reasons. If I had to choose, one of the main reasons is it's just not sustainable. So it's kind of like my analogy earlier of sweeping emotions under the rug.
Right.
They're not dissolving into thin air. They're under the rug. And eventually, via burnout, via unexpected transition, unintended consequences of good things, the lack of emotional work is going to come up. So
Okay.
my career is a living testimony. I mean, go look at my LinkedIn. It was great. It looked great on the outside. If you go and look at what I was doing on Facebook and this perfect picture of family that I created. And I use this in my burnout workshops where I show them the picture that I created of success versus what was actually happening. I was extremely stressed. I was at some point, having to take
Mm.
anxiety medications. Didn't want to tell nobody about that. I was breaking out every 6 weeks. I was always in the emergency room with some kind of stress related breakout. And eventually, I had to address those things. I had to get in more intensive therapy. I had to take the LOA from work. I had to take a sabbatical from working because I had to deal with the things. It's just not sustainable. You're going to eventually come to a halt if you start to put the cart before the horse. And is it possible? Yes. I have so much evidence that shows you that I can keep going and forget about all the things. But I have so much evidence that shows that when I do the emotional work, I actually go faster and I sustain the business and the work that I'm doing.
So, for somebody who is skipping that part, can we expect that person to burn out down the road if she or he hasn't done the emotional work?
Absolutely.
So
And
it
I
will
also
keep,
want to,
okay.
yeah, absolutely. I think,
Okay.
yes, you're good. Here's the thing, too. And I want to be clear about this. Am I going to burn out again? Burnout is inevitable. The way life rolls, burnout is inevitable. Am I going to experience the level of burnout that I did in the past? Likely not, because of my awareness. So yes, burnout is a thing. There's a Holmes Rahe stress inventory that allows you to calculate the stressors versus the stress in your life. Stressors are not just negative, stressors are good and bad. And the accumulation of stressors over time leads to burnout. So stressors could be I got married, I bought a new house,
Hmm.
I changed jobs, I got promoted at work. Those are stressors. Stress, that's good. Stressors can also be I got a divorce, I lost my job, I burned out. Those things combined, they have a point system. If all of those things are accumulating over time, then you're going to burn out. It's going to
Okay.
happen. It's about your awareness to know and to take inventory of your emotional capacity to know how you respond to the burnout. Okay.
Understood.
So doing the emotional work is
Okay.
why it's so important to, like I have on my calendar, I don't know if I shared this with you, but every Friday at 1:30, I get a calendar invite that says check your emotional capacity. And I'm
I
checking
wasn't
in and
aware.
I'm asking myself
Okay.
a set of questions to see how I feel. Like how do I feel? What can I handle? Where am I at on the stress calculator? Am I super stressed? And sometimes I am stressed because that's life. It's not going to go away. Now how do I respond to it so that I don't allow these things to accumulate over time, and without me being aware I'm burning out to a place where I have to take a 6 month sabbatical versus being
Yeah.
aware long enough to say, you know what, I need to take a week off.
So that would be one of the practice that you will encourage people to do.
Oh,
Having
absolutely.
yes, a check by the end of the week or at some point of how you feeling about your life,
Yeah,
how you feeling about your goals, how you feeling about your expectations, right?
absolutely. I like to allow people to do what works for them. So Candice needs a calendar invite every week because I live by my calendar. It's not, if it's not on my calendar, it's not real and it's not a thing. If you come and work with us at 5 Minute Career Hack, we're just going to challenge you to figure out what your best mode is to have a routine and a habit around checking your emotional capacity as often as you need to. For some people, that's daily because they have more stressors. And for some people, they don't have too many worries in the world. So they only need to check in, once every 2 weeks or once a month. But I'm definitely going to encourage you and give you the tools and the frameworks to have habits and routines to solve for the stuff we're solving for.
I'm absolutely sold. No, really, it's I feel in my core that this is something that everybody needs because once again,
Okay.
we are burying down pretty much everything we're feeling because duty comes before emotion. You feel a certain way tomorrow, the issue will still be there if you haven't tackled it. So, why even spend the time to try to figure out how you're feeling about it? So it's once again it gives us a good idea of what people will get by working with you. I was going to ask you, how do you teach people to think about return on investment, not just financially, but also with their time and energy? I feel that it relates a little bit to the question I just asked you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's practical stuff too, because again, we talk a lot about the internal piece before getting to like the compensation and things like that. Um, time and money, your time is your money. So I'm sure we've all heard that saying. I think when we get to salary negotiation or compensation, base prices, base rates, things like that, one of the challenges that I see, Sarah, is that we see it as a one track, as one dimensional. I just need to make $120,000, right? Versus I'm going to negotiate 115,000, and then I'm going to negotiate that I can go to this many the professional development courses, and then I'm going to negotiate that I get an extra week of vacation, and that I get a sign-on bonus, right? We sometimes see it as all one dimensional. And what I like to challenge people to do, and we actually have this in our Career Hacks Masters course, where it teaches you those 14 elements of negotiation, of salary, of compensation. It's not just salary. It's things like base salary, bonuses, equity, stock awards, time off, benefits, 401k, matching, time, promotion guarantees. And then I also, kind of in that walk you through, well, when you leave a company, you should also be asking for money. Here's a script. Here's an exit package you can be planning for. So when you leave a company, you leave where you can go, get you a little break before you go start your next thing. Because that's also a big challenge for women as well. We got to go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And then next thing you know, we've never really had a break. Not even when we had a baby, because 6 weeks of maternity leave is not enough. So if you ever had a baby, I just automatically think you need 6 months off. So figure out when you get ready to exit your job, how you get 6 months worth of pay, so you can make sure that you could take a good break, at least 3 months, a good 3-month break before you go into your next job. So it's deeper than compensation is my answer to that question.
And the value you're bringing is not just for the employee or the entrepreneur, because I'll tell you right now, companies are struggling to keep their employees. They found out that it's not even about salary anymore. It's about the quality of life that they have, the culture that they have in the company culture. And very often people feel that even with the right salary, they don't have enough privilege, they don't have enough benefits. There is a lot on the side that they're now stuck with. They can't feel like how to bring it up in the conversation. They don't know how anymore, and they end up quitting altogether.
Yes, all of it should be considered. And I think if we stay married to base salary, we find ourselves in trouble, because base salaries also change as well. You also mentioned culture, because I think
right,
this is
that's
again
right.
one of
Company
those
culture, yeah.
So that's one of those things. It's internal work as well. So I have episode 5, I believe, of the 5-Minute Career Hack podcast. I have a episode that I title Open Marriage. And so being in relationships with clients and with jobs, it's an open marriage situation. It's not death till death do you part. It's not they're going to mother you. They're going to, love on you like your wife would. No, y'all are married, but at any point somebody can go another direction. And that's the same thing with an organization. Is they can decide that you're done, right? They can decide that we're going to cut this role. They can decide that AI is going to replace the role. And you can decide that you're going to go to another organization. I bring that up because a lot of times we have these expectations of jobs that is actually the thing that keeps us underplaced. And I try to challenge people to think about what you're actually there for. So that's kind of how Open Marriage started. You are there for an assignment. You are there to, one, make sure to help you do your job to make sure the company is profitable. If it's a client, make sure you honor your commitment. You're there to extract and learn and gain skills so that you can then understand, how does this play into what my next step is? So company culture is great. It's awesome. But a company culture can change tomorrow. And so I want you to think about the actual things that are going to be a part of your legacy building. And that is professional development. That is stock awards. That is making the right salary so you can sustain life. That is practicing negotiation. So when you do decide to become an entrepreneur, you're already ready. See, I had to learn it. I had to learn it because I didn't practice it enough in my career. I had to get better at it as an entrepreneur. So it's definitely that continues to, it's layered is what I'd say.
It's maybe an old school mentality to want to project, we want to project a long-term relationship with our employer or with the company. And it's like you mentioned, anything can happen. It's not set in stone, and you got to be ready to move on. And I think a lot of people aren't in that mentality yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a culture shift, because back in the past, it was stay for 30 years, you stay loyal.
Right.
Stay at your job for as long as possible to show how dependable you are. And it's just not like we're in a different time. I actually value the person who is more flexible, can pivot. We had a Steph Giles came on our podcast. She's lives in Canada, and she had 15 jobs in like a very short time span. That was kind of her thing, because she was always willing to try something new. And so I don't think that loyalty, actually, there's a cost to loyalty. There's a piece of that in my writing where it actually costs us to be too loyal. And, this is not the way the world of work is anymore.
I like that perspective.
Thank you.
Loyalty is something, it's an unwritten rule that keeps us stuck somewhere, in some sort of way. It's important because you expect loyal people, I think, are offering their loyalty because they expect people to be loyal toward them as well.
Yeah.
And you cannot expect that from anybody anymore.
Yeah. I would rather us lean on integrity over loyalty.
Yes.
So let's just be truthful all the time. And just be clear about our intentions with one another versus us having this unhealthy attachment.
Yeah.
That doesn't, again, it's just not sustainable. So I choose integrity over loyalty. And I'm going to do the right thing by people who I'm in business or in relationship with. And I'm not going to stay just for the sake of honoring an expired commitment.
I was going to ask you if there was a difference between men and women when it comes to risk pricing and asking for more. I want to go a little deeper now that you said that. I feel that following this conversation, maybe older generations are the one who are the most attached to loyalty, not only giving their loyalty, but expecting loyalty from people. And I feel that the newer generations are not into that at all. And I want to ask you, so I'm just going to repeat the question, and I'm going to integrate the multi-generational perspective you have on that question, right? So is there a difference between men and women and generations when it comes to risk pricing and asking for more?
Yeah. So I'll separate men and women with the stat. And this, so I could stay factual there, because I don't know every man and every woman, but the stats say that when a man sees a job offer or they see an opportunity, if they qualify for 60% of that job or the job description, or if they can see that they can qualify themselves at the 60% rate, they're going to go for it. A woman's not even going to touch it unless she sees 100% satisfaction, 100% qualification. So Career Builder basically told us that the man is going to apply for the job. The woman's not even going to apply. Even if she's missing one qualification, she's going to say, I'm unqualified. So stats tell us that there's a difference, and that's why we have those disparities that I talked about that I would see when I pull compensation reports when I take over new teams. Generationally, I think it's a different bucket, and I like to spend time with young people, understanding how they think. By the time I was 24, I was managing baby boomers. And so I learned this multi-generational aspect and the value of it very early. What I've been able to understand in doing this work is, for generations, what we're going to strive for is just to be better than the last generation. So my mom was focused on, I can't ever get fired. I got to make sure I stay on this job. I'm not enough if I don't. And me, I just want to be better than that. I mean, that's so I'm going to figure out, well, how can I do it a little bit better than my mom? How am I going to learn work a different way? How am I going to model work a different way? And then so I'm millennial. Then you have Gen Z, and they're just trying to be better than millennials and not make all the same mistakes that millennials made. So they are less about, I got to stay loyal. They're like, I got to make sure that because I saw so many millennials and Gen Xers struggling with mental health because of toxic workplaces, I'm going to denounce the toxic workplace because I see that being loyal to a job, the job will just fire you because my mom got fired, my dad got fired, and it changed our whole life situation. I want to figure out how to not have that not be my situation. And then you throw in what we're exposed to, which is social media. So now the things that our parents were experiencing that I was experiencing, we now have platforms that has that on display. And now Gen Z and Gen A, they are exposed to so much more. That's probably
wait, how old are Gen A? Wait, don't get us all too fast. I'm like,
girl, it's a whole thing. So I don't remember the exact
when
age
did they catch up on us?
Yeah, the current. So my kids are Gen A. Yeah.
Okay, so we start speaking about Gen A now. Okay.
Yes. So
they're big enough to start making decisions. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My daughter is an entrepreneur. She's 11 years old. She's been doing business since she was 7 years old. And she only did that because she saw me doing it. And she's exposed to so much more. She is smarter. I didn't get to her level till I was about 25. To think in the way that she thinks. I was 25. She's 11 years old. And so that's what I think when we think about.
From you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And she's also actively striving to do it better than me, which is a generational pattern, that she wants to advance a little faster than me. So I think they absolutely they're going to go faster than us. That's why I think it's so important for us to be transparent and vulnerable about what we actually experience so we can actually be a part of helping them get there faster. And that's why I talk the way I talk and why I do it the way I do it, because I'm actually trying to help free baby boomers from what they thought was the truth. And then I want to make sure that from a legacy standpoint that I can maybe help the future generations go a little quicker.
And we spoke about it. Showing up for ourselves has a ripple effect, over generations, over the people, over women, over even women abroad that do not have the same opportunities that we do have here. So it's not a commitment to ourselves only. It goes beyond than that. And sometimes people don't see the impact and the legacy. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is what showing up for yourself does. We're getting to the end of the podcast, and it was a treat having you here, but I want to cover also a bit more topic, because you are an active advocate for the work you do. You're on TED Talks. You also organize workshops. You're on stage pretty often. You have a podcast. Can you tell us more about that?
Of course. So yes, I have the 5-Minute Career Hack podcast. For a majority of the year, we release 2 videos.
So 5 minutes career hack.
5-Minute Career Hack. Yep. 5-Minute Career Hack podcast. We are in season 5 right now. For majority of the year, we release 2 episodes a week. One which is the structure of our business and everything that we do. It may not be indicative because I talk so long, but we try to make sure we put things in 5-minute chunks or digestible chunks. So that's why it's 5-Minute Career Hack.
I will link it in the description so everybody gets to easily access it.
Yes. So one time a week, we release an individual episode that is just 7 to 10 minutes of, hey, here's something you can do this week to advance your career, your compensation, and your confidence. And then we do interviews kind of similar to this one, where we bring someone with a unique career story or other coaches on our platform so that they can share their journey and their expertise with our audience. So that's one way that my speaking works. And then I'm also keynote speaker, panelist, MC, host, event curator. I do
Yes.
that probably with 80 to 90% of my time. Workshops where basically we take whatever the problem is for that audience, whether complex or not, and then I'm going to bring some type of either get off the clearance rack or leadership framework to your conference that's going to help your audience understand the root of the issue, get the tools and the frameworks to do the work, and then they always leave not motivated. I always start with, if you feel motivated, fire me. I want you to feel equipped with tools and action steps that you can do after you've heard me talk.
But I want people to understand, because I'm now somebody who is an active listener of your podcast. I did learn from it a lot. There is a lot of different guests that you have on the podcast, and those practical tools are absolute lifesavers for most people who do not have access to, a coach, or are not ready yet to take on that journey. But it's a wake up call, so they'll end up realizing how valuable it is. The workshops that you do, is it online or is it in person?
Yeah, we do both. So we offer online options. We
Okay.
started back in 2020, where virtual was the only option because we weren't in real life. And so yeah, we do online workshops and we do in-person workshops.
So
And
somebody
all
can
of
start by
those,
your workshop first.
absolutely, go to
Okay.
5minutecareerhack.com. It's going to show you our signature workshops, which are personal brand, conflict management, and burnout. And then most of our workshops were formed because, again, some company had some unique problem that either the data or the story or the culture told, that we bring the solution to. So that's one of our specialties, as being retail babies and operations experts, was kind of understanding how to solve any complex problem by way of our words and our frameworks and the tools.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to ask you one last question today. On the other side of all of this, what does success and alignment really looks for you?
Oh, such a good question.
Really looks like for
Uh,
you? Sorry.
yeah. I'm going to, I always end everything that I talk about, and we've touched on it today, but I always like to end it with this, and it's legacy.
Yes.
Success, I don't define success is just freedom. My friend Crystal Grimes just says success is just the freedom to do what you're purposed to do every day. So that's success to me in this life. What success could look like to me as time progresses in the future is through my legacy. My legacy is not just my children. I want the people who hear this, the woman who hears it, my daughter and my son who are watching. I want something I said or something that I did to have impacted them in such a way that they live life on purpose as whole people, constantly striving to embrace the journey that is day to day, because tomorrow's not promised. So success is my daughter becomes better than me, that my mentees get promoted in 3 years instead of the 4 years that I did one time. Success is pay gaps being closed tighter and tighter and for future generations. Success is business owners advocating for themselves. I could go down that list, but I just want to see people who look to me for guidance, for support, for structure, that they do better. And that's how I would define it for myself. I may not see it always tangibly, but I think, hey, if we can go from 78 cents on the dollar to in 2035 it's 55 cents on the dollar, then I think we're getting somewhere. So that's it for me.
That's an amazing conclusion to this podcast. And it speaks volume about your personality, your mission, your vision, and all the reasons why whoever is listening to this podcast should reach out to you and start collaborating with you. It's a beautiful journey. I feel so blessed and honored that you decided to sit with me today and share your wisdom, your knowledge, and these amazing practical tools for the listeners. And I want to thank you again. Really, it was incredible.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to uh, be trusted to share my story on your platform. I love the work that you do, the mission that you have with your podcast, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I look forward to more.
Yes, yes. And guys, again, I will add everything in the description down below. Please have a listen to the podcast and make sure to reach out to Candyce. She's incredible.